All right, Barjo, time for our next review. NaissanceE is an exploratory first-person game.
Hang on a sec, Hex. Exploratory first-person game? French title? Oh no.
Wait, Barjo, what's happening?
Oh, it's a French auntie! Walk him up, Hex!
Oh,
No! This is NaissanceE, a first-person puzzle exploration platformer kind of thing, which reminds me a bit of Portal, just a lot stranger.
You play as Lucy, a silent protagonist who we first see running from a mysterious cube creature. No, thank you.
Pretty good.
Then, after tumbling down a hole, she finds herself lost in some immense and elaborate construct.
There's no narration, no audio logs, and no other living soul to tell you anything about this place. All you know comes from what you see. And what you can see tells a very strange story indeed.
Yeah, it's quite a sight. The designs of rooms and structures range from chaotic jumbles of cubes, surgically clean and minimalist, sprawling underground metropolises, eventually delving into some of the most intensely surreal virtual places I've ever seen.
Yeah, it gives you a great sense of mystery that I think leaves you asking questions and coming up with little theories.
Is this an alien planet? Or perhaps a scientific experiment?
How did I get here?
Where is everyone?
Was there an apocalypse?
Maybe this was all built for me and it's simply that creature's impression of my reality.
I do like how open to interpretation it all is.
Yeah, it's kind of like going through room after room of beautiful virtual art exhibits. And just like any good artwork, each exhibit invites that kind of artsy discussion about a greater meaning and purpose. Although I'm not sure there always is a greater meaning, but at least it makes you think.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to review this without sounding like we're reviewing a painting.
I loved the stark, almost unfinished look they've employed. Surfaces are clean with no real colour or texture to them.
Yeah, the use of colour, or the lack of it, is quite striking, isn't it? The world isn't necessarily black and white, but there's almost no colour for the light to show.
Yeah, it's some of the most eye-catching use of light and shadow that I've ever seen. While often it's just pretty, it's also used to great effect to play some masterful mind games on you. It can be quite disorienting, but just as you'll start to feel completely lost, a door will suddenly appear or you'll see a hint of light to guide you.
Although I could have done without these bloody doors. You find these two doors, one leads to a pure white room and the other to a pure black one, and the only way to navigate is from fast flashes of light or shadow, and you can fall off platforms to your death. Worst rooms ever, Hex.
Yeah, they were kind of like extreme versions of, do you remember that game Unfinished Swan? Although thankfully things aren't always that intense.
Yes, and I was glad that this wasn't a pure walk 'em up. There are a few puzzles where you'll have to move lights around to make walls and platforms disappear or move. There's not many of them, and none of them have any particularly tricky or mind-bending solutions, but I'm glad they're there.
And there's also quite a bit of tricky platforming, which helped keep it from becoming too much of a passive experience.
Some of the heavy platforming sections do lead to some pretty cheap deaths though.
Yeah, but the checkpoints are generous, and I think that stops it from becoming too frustrating. Speaking of frustrating, I'm not sure if I found some bugs or if the game just deliberately traps you in certain places, but I stumbled across what seemed to be a child's room, and then all of a sudden I could barely move, and then when I tried to leave, a strange force would just throw me back in.
Yeah, at one point I got trapped in an infinite stairwell with no way out. I spent ages running down them thinking something was about to happen or there was some puzzle to solve. But no, just infinite stairs.
Well, that one got me too.
Oh fuck.
The only solution I found in both cases was reloading the last checkpoint and going in a different direction, so I get the feeling like those were intentional trolls. It's kind of annoying for sure, but you know, looking back at it, I kind of like that those things are just there to mess with you, and I'm sure there's some other little hidden secrets to be discovered as well.
Yeah, I think as an interactive piece of art, this is quite spectacular, but it's also not particularly fun, and in fact I found it quite annoying at times. I also think maybe it's a little overpriced for the 2 or 3 hours you get out of this game.
Well, your running time will depend on how long you get stuck in infinite stairways in children's rooms.
This is true. I think if you're looking for something to simulate a psychedelic night at the Modern Art Museum, then this is right up your alley. I'm giving it 6.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Now, the last hour of this game really blew me away because things get a lot more strange and a lot more surreal. Sadly though, I think the actual ending was pretty weak. But you know, it is a visually impressive game with a stunning soundtrack to boot and just, you know, really interesting. So I'm giving it 8.
NaissanceE is a perfect example of a game that tells a story in a unique way, and recently we spoke to some developers at the Perth Writers Festival about that very subject.